It's more than 1 million pounds. It's as big as 2 football fields. You are not going to bring that up in one single lift. So we had to bring up the space station in parts and assemble it. The space shuttle was instrumental to bringing up at least the American side of that. It was more than 40 missions over about 13 years to assemble all those parts of the space station.
And so human spaceflight is really interesting because we do adapt really quickly to the environment. How quickly it felt natural to float around. How quickly it felt normal to look out the window and see the Earth go by.
Human beings are built to be able to adapt to weightlessness, and that allows us to go do that exploration. And so we have improved the exercise equipment, we improved the diet, the vitamins. I mean, came back so strong that physically I was actually stronger than when I left, when I did the physical fitness tests when we got back. It gives me great hope that, if we have similar type of equipment on our long duration space vehicles, we're going to show up on Mars and be ready to work the minute we get there.
Orion, our state-of-the-art spacecraft, is designed to take crews into deep space, and then once their work is done, to safely bring them back home. Sometimes folks ask me, what do you think the next 60 years has in store? I don't know all of the destinations that we will visit, the mysteries that we will solve, the places that we will leave footprints again.
And we want to see what's out there. We want to see how it works. We want to go explore. There's always this desire to learn more, to satisfy that inquisitive nature. Let's go do it.
NASA has blazed a trail for all of humankind.
We have done really incredible, ambitious missions, robotic missions that make new scientific discoveries and essentially rewrite textbooks every year on a regular basis.
The computer that was used during the Apollo era, the Apollo guidance computer, allowed for 85,000 instructions per second. Our high-performance spaceflight computing platform will allow for 15 billion instructions per second, so a faster computer.
We gotta try to get there faster, if possible, with new rocket technology.
We carry more payload than any other rocket. NASA is working on this larger rocket to carry what we need to build platforms to do our deep space journeys. So onto Mars, or back to the moon, or around the moon, which is part of our initial set of missions.
We look at technologies that will get us there, land us there, and once we get there, we have to be able to explore.
There are other technologies we're looking at that would allow you to kind of suit up immediately and go straight out the door, which is something that our astronauts right now would love to do. You know, we've been taking the lessons we've learned from the current white suit, and we've built lots of other suits to test lots of other capabilities. It's been a real heritage of learning and development.
We proactively work with companies to understand their challenges and opportunities and see how our innovative ideas and technologies can help them meet those so they can grow their businesses, create new jobs.
So when you think about 60 years of NASA's history, how it has benefited all of humanity and changed the human condition on Earth, the way we communicate, the way we navigate, the way we produce food, the way we produce energy, the way we do disaster relief, the way we predict weather, the way we understand climate. We are all dependent on space for our everyday lives. All of these capabilities, all of these technologies, all of these things that have improved human life on Earth are available because of a trail that was blazed by NASA. And I think that's really what we do. Welcome to Watch This Space. I'm NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, and today we have a very, very special guest, astronaut Nick Hague, who was our American hero who flew on the Russian Soyuz rocket that was in fact a mission failure, but really it was a success. He followed all the procedures, he did it in Russian, and he came home alive. The NASA family is exceptionally proud of his service, and today we have the opportunity to speak to him directly. Well, Nick, thank you for joining us. If you would, just share with us how you're feeling.
Yes, sir. Great to be with you. I'm feeling great. All things considered, being able to walk away from something like that with only a couple, bruises or bumps physically, I'm doing awesome. Was actually able to enjoy some of the cool fall weather here in Houston and go out for a run with my wife this morning for a few miles, and feeling great.
That's wonderful to hear. Share with us, if you would, just walk through kind of what you experienced from launch all the way until touchdown.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. So the first 2 minutes of the launch went completely per plan, and it was a smooth ride. During those first 2 minutes, as we're sitting there watching everything, monitoring everything, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, wow, this is everything I expected it to be. And it was, up until it became everything I didn't expect it to be. At that first stage separation, all of a sudden we were kind of violently shaken side to side and thrust back into our seats as the launch escape system ripped us away from the rocket. And as all of that's happening, you can imagine being shaken around. Your vision's a little blurry. I hear the alarm and I see the red light where the engine has had an emergency. And so at that point, it was a pretty vivid realization of that, hey, we're not going to make it to orbit today. We've been pulled off the rocket, and now we've got to land.
So at that point,
yeah.
Did you know that you had separated from the rocket, or did you just know that the rocket was having problems?
No, I knew we were away from the rocket at that point, and it's pretty clear in the way the procedures are laid out, what the next step is, and so Alexei and I just kind of both transitioned into, okay, we know we're coming back and we need to start executing these procedures. So there's a little bit of a time after the launch escape system has pulled you away, because based on that point in our trajectory, what pulled us away was actually the fairing that we were underneath and the rockets attached to it. So it pulled us away underneath that fairing, so we couldn't see outside yet. And it took about 30 seconds for us to then separate the capsule from that fairing, and then we could see out the windows. So those 30 seconds were probably the longest 30 seconds of the entire process, as you just try to process, what has transpired, where are we at, trying to assess, your condition and the state of the capsule, and then prepare for what you need to do over the next 15 minutes to get back down on the ground.
So I was watching a lot of the data and listening to the communications with Dmitry Rogozin, the head of Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, while this was going on. And I remember hearing at a point in time that you had a feeling of weightlessness. Was that pretty much soon after the launch abort system was activated?
Yeah, so as it rips us away from the rocket, at that point, once those thrusters are done, we're like if you throw a baseball up in the air, it's going to follow this ballistic trajectory. And so that feeling of weightlessness is kind of when we were peaking out and getting ready to fall back down to the earth. And I remember that well. For some reason, there's different memories and images that have really solidified in my mind. And I remember this small little piece of debris just kind of floating across in front of my face, and looking up and seeing our zero-G indicators just kind of floating there, and realizing that, hey, this must be what space is going to feel like, but yeah, not today.
And then the next thing I remember hearing was the interpreter who was interpreting Russian for me, because I don't speak Russian as you do. The interpreter, I heard her say 6.7 Gs, and that was the first time I really realized something was absolutely not right. So after a period of time, you were weightless. Then the onset of Gs as you do the ballistic reentry. Is that how long did that take before you got to that level?
Yeah, so that ball's coming down. Our capsule is falling back down to the Earth, and the way it's going to slow down to get us to a point where we can open the chutes is just aerodynamic drag, and so those Gs are the result of that drag. And it was probably a handful of minutes before it started to really peak up. Luckily for us, the peak in G was not sustained for that long. It felt like we were at elevated Gs for maybe 20 seconds or so. And we've done training in the centrifuge to higher levels than that, to 8 Gs for 30 seconds. And so you're trained on how to properly breathe. It's not the same as my experience or as your experience in flying aircraft in the military. Those Gs are from your head to your rear end, and they try to pull the blood out of your head. These Gs are coming straight at us, pushing down on our chest, and so it really is a matter of trying to learn how to keep your chest open so that you can take a breath of air in, and keeping those muscles flexed, and then trying to use your abdomen to move your diaphragm so that you can breathe in and out. But the training was great. It was everything I had expected to be able to do under that G load.
When I heard 6.7 G, and of course I was listening to the interpreter, but my recollection was that was your voice that was speaking. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were calling out all kinds of things at that moment. Alexei was primed for making communication with the ground, but we're talking to each other the whole time, and then when we're talking to each other, anytime he hits the transmit button, anything that we're saying from either position gets transmitted to the ground. So there's probably a few snippets of me talking back and forth to him, and it's the training kicks in. We spend a lot of time elbow to elbow crammed in that capsule practicing these situations.
Yeah.
And when I'm in Star City, all of that is in Russian. So
yeah.
It just becomes reflex.
Well, that was one thing that really took me by surprise, is I had to think how much duress you must be under, that obviously this is now a failed launch. The launch abort system has taken place. You're going from a 0 gravity position to a 6.7 gravity G position, and I remember thinking, everybody sounds calm, and you're still speaking in Russian, which means these are not unfamiliar to you. You have practiced this kind of thing before, and I was just kind of in awe of it all, because at no point did I hear you break into English. And yet you had to be wanting to say things in your own language.
There were a lot of things I probably wanted to say.
Right. But the world was watching, and so you controlled yourself. I see.
Well, no, you realize you're in a tough spot, and the thing that you can do to give yourself the highest chance of success is to just focus and stay calm and do the things that you were trained to do.
Yeah.
The guys at the Cosmonaut Training Center in Star City, it's a robust training system. They have put us through every possible failure. They put us through a failure, very similar to this with a rocket failure. So we've seen all of these, and it's just a matter of trying to harness the training that they've given us and put it into action. And so, I'd like to take credit for, being calm and collected and knowing exactly what to do. The real credit goes to all those instructors that have spent the last 2 years making sure I'd know what to do in those situations.
Well, Nick, we're all so proud of you, and so impressed by what you've been able to do. Let me ask you, after going through a period of Gs, at some point it had to start lessening as you went into a free fall within the atmosphere, followed by the deployment of the parachutes. What were you thinking at that time?
Yeah, so after the Gs started to drop off, we were getting ready for the parachute deployment. I'd been told many times that so at that point, after that peak in G, it's a nominal landing. All of the actions that are going to occur are things that we've practiced hundreds of times. What we haven't practiced is all the physical sensations that go along with those nominal landings. And so I had a note written in my procedures, hey, when the parachute opens, there's going to be 5 to 6 Gs of lateral side to side swinging back and forth. And so before the chute's open, we're trying to collect all of our loose items that are in the capsule and make sure that once this opens, those aren't going to become projectiles inside the capsule.
Yeah.
And prepping for that. After that opens, hey, we've got a good shoot. Then it was a little bit of me looking out the window and trying to assess how high up we were, because normally we'd have the rescue forces circling around in helicopters giving us updates on our altitude. We'd also have an altimeter on the commander's arm that he would wear during landing. We didn't have those because you don't prep for those on launch. And so it was my eyeball out the window going, hey, I think we're at 10,000 feet, or hey, we're at 5,000 feet, and just kind of gauging as we were going down.
Yeah.
While I'm doing that, Alexei is trying to make contact with the SAR forces and get them to our location so that we can get extracted as quick as possible.
And then right before touchdown, rockets fire. Is that correct?
Yeah, so on a standard landing, they're called soft landing rockets. The soft landing thrusters help brace or help minimize some of that impact with the ground. I got to tell you, for a nominal landing, it's still a pretty amazing sensation. I've heard recall it as riding a barrel off Niagara Falls, and I'd say that it's pretty close to that.
Wow.
We hit the ground. As soon as we hit the ground, Alexei cut the riser to the parachute so it wouldn't drag us. And then it felt like we bounced 2 or 3 times and tumbled and then finally skidded to a stop. It was a rough ride, but I got to tell you, when we skidded to a stop and I looked out the window and it was about 12 inches from dirt, I was at that moment, it was a huge, sigh of relief, and I was like, okay, whew, we made it.
What was your communication to Alexei at that point?
We were grins ear to ear, looking at each other, giving each other a high five, and cracking a couple jokes about it being a short flight or completely something unexpected. But it was just this sense of relief, being able to look each other eye to eye and knowing, okay, wow, we just survived that.
So how much were you hearing from Mission Control during this?
Yeah, so as soon as we were extracted from the rocket and Alexei was reporting our condition, we were tied in, not with Mission Control in Moscow, which is where we would normally talk to once we've made it to orbit, but we're actually talking to flight controllers there in Baikonur. And so they were in contact with us. We were reporting that we were in good condition. We were trying to get their advice on the ballistic reentry and activating that mode, and they were able to provide that to Alexei. And then we just continued reporting down. So we had fairly good contact throughout the entire flight.
How long were you on the ground before the search and rescue crews got to where you were?
When we landed and we skidded to the stop, we were kind of hanging from our straps inside the capsule because of the way the capsule was oriented on the ground. And so we were trying to make the decision whether we were just going to hang there and wait for them to come get us, or we were going to try to open our buckles and maybe fall in the capsule and then try to figure out how to open the hatch when we're standing on top of it. The SAR forces had almost, within a minute or so of us being on the ground, they said they had visual on us and that they were going to be, on the order of 10, 20 minutes to get to us. I guess I'd never realized, so they had 3 pararescue jumpers that as soon as they had found where we were at, the plane circling over, they jumped in to get to us as quick as they could. And so it was a handful of minutes, and then somebody was tapping on the window next to me, giving me the OK symbol, and I was answering back with a big smile, and then they had the hatch open. So I was just amazed at their response, and that, you got to think that they haven't practiced, they practice this all the time, but they haven't had to put it to use in 35 years.
Yeah.
And for them to just respond the way they did is a true testament to how serious they take their responsibilities and their job.
Well, it was an amazing day, and I know it was a mission failure. But it was as successful of a failure as you can possibly have. And I just hope you know, Nick, how proud your whole country is of you. I hope I hope all of America knows how proud they should be of the agency, of NASA, of the engineers, the mission controllers, and of course the astronauts. I will tell you, as the NASA administrator, for me to attend and just to have the opportunity to see the Russian counterparts to America's crew just demonstrate such excitement when they realized that you were safe, that you were coming down safely, that you were going to land safely. Watching our engineers and our mission controllers embrace the Russian engineers and the Russian mission controllers, it was a sight to behold. And I know that before you launched, I had the opportunity to speak to you, and I said that your mission is not just one of science and discovery, it's not just of exploration, but it's one of diplomacy. And Nick, I can tell you that diplomacy was on full display, as we saw two nations that in many cases are not aligned, and in fact our interests diverge in so many ways. But when it comes to space exploration, we've always been able to put those things aside and work together hand in glove. And that was on full display for me as the NASA administrator. To watch it was just amazing. And then once you guys got back to Baikonur, and I had the ability to see you firsthand and of course spend some time with your family, it was emotionally draining for others, probably even more than me, and certainly for you. But I will tell you, the relationship between the United States and Russia in space is probably as strong now as it's ever been. And your mission was truly a mission of diplomacy. So we are all so grateful for you. And I just hope all of America understands how amazing this NASA family is, because I got to see it firsthand really for the first time. And I was blown away. So thank you for what you do.
No, thank you, sir. I appreciate the kind words. I couldn't agree with you more. Being able to fly on a Soyuz and participate in all of that training and get that exposure to Russia and to the people that comprise the organization over there, I can tell you that I was not surprised by their support and how well they worked. It's on display every day over there, and it's just a privilege to be a part of that. I have to say that for a first flight for me, it was extremely memorable. I'm sure you'll never forget it, but I would be remiss if I didn't invite you to my next flight, whenever that might be.
You can count on it. I will be there, and next time we will get you to the International Space Station.
Okay, sounds good.
Nick, you're an American hero, and our whole country is very proud of you. And you have an amazing family. And please share my regards